Everybody. This is Cis Ahearn RN. I wanted to talk to you about our program today, which is if you are feeling super unappreciated as a nurse, what to do about it. Let's get through some of the essentials to start with. Let's see. Logistics. Please have a journal nearby because there'll be some things that you may want to write down about this. Let's see. Put your questions into the chat and I will either answer as we're going or we're going to have a Q&A at the end. Any new thoughts, ideas, approaches to feeling more appreciated? So to start with, I'm going to share something very personal. Yesterday, I had one of those days. It was like the end of what I've been talking about, which is how to appreciate yourself, really. I've been retired for almost a year and a half, and I went back to work to help out my coworkers after 6 months. And we got a new surgeon, and he was just really ambitious and really great, good surgeon. But over time, what I've seen happening has left me feeling less than appreciated. And what I find happening is my belief systems, my standards of care, and those are the rules that protect us no matter what, have been in question or actually in jeopardy. So anyway, the end result was I did what I knew was right, which was taking care of myself first, which was really hard to do for years and years. So what does it mean to be appreciated? What does it look like for you? When you are a nurse and you feel unappreciated, what does it mean? Does it mean you aren't recognized? Does it mean you leave work feeling lousy? Do you have tearful moments at work? That's a real big one. What does it mean to be unappreciated? And sometimes it's different for all of us. Some of us may feel we need more administrative support. Some of us may need to actually take time away. Some of us just need to have a moment to cry and unload that stress that builds up when we start to feel unappreciated. Sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what does it mean to me to be unappreciated? It's important to define that. What does it mean to be unappreciated? What would it look like if I was appreciated? Among ourselves, I find that there's always people that appreciate you. And I happen to work in an environment where I know that my manager really appreciates me and that my coworkers really appreciate me. One of the ways that I know this is because I share appreciation with them. I always thank them and remind them of their gifts that they have to share every single day. We're a group that tends to party together. What are other ways that you can show your appreciation to your coworkers? I remember one day I was in the operating room corridor and my boss came in and she looked starstruck. And I said, what is going on with you? And she said, I've been yelled at 3 times today. And I, without even thinking, I went, oh, let me give you a hug. And I hugged her, and a nurse anesthetist walked in the door and she said, oh no, I got to get in on that too. And we had this big threesome hug. And you could just feel the vibration of it going, being seeped out. Some people just like to have words, somebody just say, thanks. I know that was hard for you, and I really appreciate you being here. Sometimes appreciation means more money. I hate to tell you, but after a while, money just doesn't mean it. Doesn't do it. You can give me all the money in the world. If I feel unappreciated at a job, not going to work for me, because I have standards too. And I think sometimes we forget that we have these protections as nurses. We have standards of care. We have nursing standards. And when I talk about standards, these are things that will protect you in a court of law. These are the rules that we live by that have been there to protect us from harm and to protect our patients from harm. Do we appreciate other people's jobs? If you have nursing assistants, do you appreciate the work that they do? Because sometimes if we ignore the work of others, they have the choice to ignore the work of ours. So really looking at your coworkers and appreciating all that they do and having compassion and gratitude for them helps you feel appreciated. So important. Now, if you have coworkers who aren't pulling their weight, we can show our unappreciation by talking about them, but not actually saying to them, you know what, you need to step up to what needs to be done here. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is the language. And I'm going to talk about that later. And I talk about that a lot with my coaching clients, learning a language that you can say that helps you be true to yourself, really true to yourself, and also leaves you feeling good and them with a question on their mind. Am I stepping up? Have I been really participating? So this is also about appreciating others. I know that when you're not appreciated, you can feel it. I just heard something. I listened to a video today from my friend Lana, and she was talking about how she recognizes that she's an empath. And since empath is like this new age kind of word, it's very important that if you're a nurse who feels a lot, you need to go look that word up and find out that you are in fact an empath. And that makes it doubly hard for you to be able to feel appreciated, because you feel everything. Somebody walks by you in a bad mood, you don't even have to see their face. You know that they're not feeling good. It's an amazing gift, but it's also difficult sometimes when you can't create boundaries so that you don't take some of that stuff in. So here's an interesting thing. I asked a coworker the other day at lunch, I said, what do you think how do we appreciate our jobs? What would show us that we are appreciated? What would be something? What's the most important thing that you need to be appreciated at your job? And for her, it was not to always hear the negative, but to hear the positive. And I thought about that, and I thought that's really, really true, because the tendency in the past has been, when we get evaluated, we hear a lot about what we don't get done, at least at some of the institutes I've worked at, or institutions. And even in the Tony Robbins, he always talks about the 90-10 rule. And when I first got in as a senior leader there, he came bolting into the leadership room one day and said, we're changing everything. Because when we first came in, we would say that 90% of us is perfect. And then there was this 10% that needed to be worked on. So we used to work on the 10%. Well, that day he came in and he said, we're changing all of that. Let's forget about the 10% and really focus on the 90%. Because as soon as you focus on the 90%, all the good that we do, all the goodness in us, all the compassion we have, all the skills we have, the experience, when you start looking at that, all the rest of that shit goes away. Oops, sorry. All the rest of that stuff goes away. That 10% doesn't matter anymore because you're really focusing on the goodness of what you have. And we're 90%. Think about it. We're so experienced. And if we're not, we're seeking experience. We're trying to learn. We're looking for answers. We're asking questions. Because that's who we are as nurses. We're seeking. We're seekers. So how do we help our coworkers when they're having a bad day? And this specifically goes to one of the people who responded to one of my posts, who was saying that she worked with a woman who every single day she came to work did her best to make this nurse's life miserable. So I've certainly worked with those kinds of people. I hope to God I've never been that person. But one of the things that I thought of immediately was their life. That person that makes your life miserable all the time is even worse. And so it's hard because being an empath, you feel her frustration, her dissatisfaction, her depression, or their unhappiness. You feel it and you want to help them, but they just snap at you, blow you off. So my thing is, don't give up. Start doing those random acts of kindness. Say something nice. No matter what they say something nice and walk away. Just try it. Try 3 days. I ask you 3 days, just go touch them on the arm and say, hey, is there anything I can do for you today? And see if they don't respond eventually to your love and kindness, because you don't want to become them. And that's what happens when you're an empath. Somebody has a bad mood. You feel it. You go, oh man, oh, it's terrible. Blah, blah, blah. No, help them. That's what they need. And if you don't break through, it's okay, because you know how they say when you go to the grocery store and you walk through and the cashier's having a bad day and you say something nice to her, and maybe she responds, maybe she doesn't, but in her mind, she's saying, wow, somebody cares about me. And then she goes home and she's nice to her cat, and she's nice to her husband. She's nicer to her kids. It's that tiny pebble. So please, 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 when you have those difficult people in your life that are in your nursing career, find that, just drop that little pebble, that just one little word of kindness, and see what happens. 3 days. I'm only challenging you to do it 3 days. If at the end of those 3 days, don't stop, just keep going. And just know that somewhere deep inside of her, she feels you. Okay. What are some of the things you appreciate about some of the other nurses that you work with? What are a couple of those things? Write them down, put them in the chat. I'm just going to go through the nurses I work with. My manager, Michelle, she's a freaking yes person. She will get it done if it can be done. And I really, really love that about her. It can cost her because, again, she needs to learn how to say no once in a while. But she is such a powerful person. I have my director of nurses who's been through the most amazing and astonishing events of her life. And yet she gets up every day and she does what she can to support the nurses. And I've mentioned her before because when I was working full time, There were days when I would go into her office and I wouldn't have wanted to see me. I would be so angry and frustrated and pissed off, and in a snap, whatever she said to me, I'd be back on the ground again, and I would be back to being centered, and I would be back to knowing, okay, I'm okay here, and I can let that go or not, but I would at least be back on the ground. And that's a gift. That's such a gift. One of my other coworkers, she always makes me laugh. She says the funniest things, and you just can't believe, you're like, where in the world did you get that? She makes cards for people. I'll show you one of them. Probably shouldn't, but I will. So this is my birthday card. Yep, that was me with dark hair. She's just very creative and funny. I really appreciate that about her. I have another nurse that I know who just stays the course, and she's funny. She laughs really loud, but she's good people. And I like to tell her that often. We have a secretary who takes on way more than any person I know. And yet every day she smiles, she tries to stay on the course of, I'm not going to blow up here because people are crazy around me. So start to look at people that you know at work and start appreciating them, and maybe silently at first, but start telling them what you love about what they do. Start telling them, really like how you sit by the patient's thing, or I love how you always help me when I'm getting confused about medications, or I love how you always offer to help when I have to move a patient. Whatever it is, start to appreciate them even more. And as you start to do that, you're going to start to feel a little better about yourself. And here's the thing. No one can appreciate you more than you can appreciate yourself. And this is important. That means you have to own who you are. If, for instance, someone is ignoring you and you're feeling very unappreciated, I ask you, what is it going to take to be appreciated? I believe if I don't appreciate how strong I am, how intelligent I am, how compassionate I am, empathic, knowledgeable, experienced, why would anybody else? So I'd like you to sit down on your journal and put, I so appreciate about myself, and fill that out. Okay. That's one of the questions I want you to put in your journal, among others. And here's the other thing. When you appreciate who you are and what you're doing, I would like to know, do you appreciate what your nursing profession has given you? Aside from all the experience, the headaches, the frustration, the knowledge, the skills. Do you ever think about, if it weren't for my career, my nursing career, I wouldn't have a home. I wouldn't be able to pay rent. I wouldn't be able to have the house that I have. I wouldn't be able to buy a car. I probably wouldn't be able to take any great vacations like I do. I wouldn't be able to have birthday parties for my children. I might not even be able to have birthday parties for my grandchildren. Our career, our profession gives us freedom. This is important. And it also beats us down to where we forget about what it gives us. And we forget to appreciate ourselves and all that we do and all that we know. So when I talk about experience and skills, if you're a new nurse, you're going to learn. Yeah. You don't even know what you're going to learn. You don't even know how much you're going to learn. If you're a nurse for 5 years, you can look back and say, wow, I have learned a lot. Try 46 years. 46 years. I know shit. Oops, there I go again. I know stuff. I can't even tell you all that I know. And it's insane to not appreciate nurses that have experience, even 2 years or 5 years, because you will never stop learning. You will never stop learning. Even when I retired, I was right on to another idea, program, learning experience. It's what we do. We learn. New things come up. We have to try. We've learned new instruments. We've learned new equipment. We learn new skill sets. We learn new charting, new programs for charting. We are constantly learning. This is not the job for life is easy. It isn't. It's a struggle, and it's worth it because I have a house. I have a car. I have great vacations. I have things that I need. So learn to appreciate what you have and what you know. I mean, you don't learn how to do a Foley 20 years ago and forget how to do it. You can be sure you'll only do it one time and you'll remember everything about it. Okay. So just appreciate what you know. It's so, so important. So here's a horror story about my first year at one place I worked at, and the CEO's idea of people working actually being evaluated was no one was above average. Can you imagine that? Oh, I couldn't believe it. So I came into a unit that 2 people had been on the job retired. They were ready. They were already gone in their own minds. They were waiting just to jump. And one of them jumped a month before me and one of them jumped 2 weeks after I left. And I appreciate that. But in the jumping and in the past year, no one had done inventory. No dating expiration dates had been checked. There were some flaws in the operating room that to me were signposts. And probably 14 more things. So anyway, I get my evaluation. It's all average. And I was so shocked because I had done so much work to bring it up to what I consider my standard of care, but which is actually the AORN standard of care. And I was being told I was average because some guy who didn't even know me, didn't even care, decided that no one got more than average. Now, what would be, to me, what would be the inspiration in telling somebody you're average? What would you want as a result of that? You're average. Yeah. Nothing. So I went and sat down and wrote down 18 things that I had done that took time, effort, 100% quality improvement in the area, 100% practice improvement, because now there were actually guidelines for how to set up a room, what medications what stuff did we need for each case. I wrote all of that up for every doctor. I had found an area in the operating room that 2 things that I found were really lacking. And if the state ever saw it, we would be in trouble. I fixed that. I had changed all these things in 1 year. I thought I can never do more than that because now this OR is up to standard. At least it's the bomb now. And so I was really frustrated by that. But then I realized, and I kept the list, I realized I actually did all of that. That's good. That's really good stuff. So I recognized my gift right there. I didn't care anymore whether they knew it or not. I knew that I had done all of that. I had brought this room up to standard, and I had organized and took all these outdated things out and got rid of them. I did that. And I did it because I love my profession. I want to work in a safe environment. And that means I had to create that because nobody else wanted that ballywick. And I took it on. So recognize when you do that stuff. Give yourself a big pat on the back because we do it. It's just what we do. We see something, we go, that could be done a little differently. Let's fix that. And that's who we are. So give yourself credit for that. Appreciate yourself for that because they're not going to care that much, they being administration, until they do. And my hope in the future is that what is happening in nursing and in the medical field is going to change to a more compassionate viewpoint rather than a financial viewpoint. And should that happen, I bless all of you that stay because it's going to be, it can't get much worse than it is right now. I hear people saying, well, there's, we're ready to start hiring nurses. And I think, well, so is that hospital across the river and that one in Portland and that one in Vancouver and that one in Florida. They're all ready to start hiring, but they've blown away really great nurses. So how do you figure it out? You have your standards, not just your standards of care, your standards of practice. You have your own standards that say, no, I won't tolerate that. No, I'm not going to do that because it's not covered in standards of care. So I'm not protected. Learn how to do that and stand by it. Stand by it. So in the end, what I ended up doing yesterday or the day before yesterday is I spoke to my coach, and twice in my conversation with her, she said, I need to stop. I just need to stop. I need to just stop. And so I did. Called my boss and I said, I will come to work tomorrow, but I'm off for a while. I'm burned out and that's not fair. I'm a retired nurse and I don't have any time to do what I love doing, which is helping you guys. So we'll see what happens. But I do know that I appreciate who I am. And that's the only way I could have said that. I didn't quit. I just said I need time away. And they can grant me that, or they can let me go. Either way, I can live with it. I can live with it because I appreciate who I am and who I become when I'm not this stressed out and overworked and underappreciated is just remarkable. And that's who I like being. I prefer being that happy, excited, loving nurse. And I do love my work. I just feel that there are times when people push us over the edge and a lot of us go numb, and that's not okay because then you make mistakes. Then you make decisions that aren't for the good of all. So please learn to appreciate your gifts, your experience, your skills, your empathy, all the things that make you such a good nurse and feel good about going to work. I always used to say, if I drive to work and say, I hate this job, that's the day I turn in my resignation. And I'm not lying. I used to carry one around with me because I worked at a place that used to get me so stressed out about, I chose to be stressed out, I should say. But the stuff that was going on was not my standard. And I understand for some people, they say, well, you have high standards for how you practice. Well, yeah, I do. You know why? Because in the end, it protects me. It protects me from lawsuits, knock on wood. It protects me from poor outcomes. I have high standards. That's it. And those standards are protected by the law. Just remember that. Never let that go. Never, ever let that go. So I'm going to teach you a couple of things to say that I want you to write down. So one of the things that happens is you get tongue-tied, or you don't want to say anything because you might just blow your head off. So what I recommend sometimes is, if someone is speaking to you in a negative or unkind way, or asking you to do something you know is not protected by your standards, you say, "I'm really sorry, but that's unacceptable. I'm not comfortable with doing that." So easy to do. So easy to say, "I'm sorry." I had a physician that I work with tell me, we don't really need to do the timeouts. It's a small hospital. The patients are all the same. We're only going to be working one patient at a time, blah, blah, blah. I said, that may be so for you, but it's the law for me. And I think you can manage to stand my timeout, which takes 30 seconds. So I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to do it my way, which I had already researched, knew about timeouts. We had a state thing a couple of years ago, so we really researched it and found out what's absolutely necessary for it. And, I don't care what he says. I'm still going to do it. So I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. We're still going to do it my way. And not to mention the fact, I mean, he wasn't even born when I was a nurse. I mean, I'd been a nurse for 10 years. Yeah, when he was born. I mean, you just can't blow that experience away. You can't ignore it. And you cannot disrespect it. So here's another one. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm just not comfortable with this. I'll have to call the manager on it. I'm not comfortable doing this procedure, blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to call my manager. Okay. Protects you. Standards of care. It protects you. It is the law. I appreciate what you're saying. I don't agree. End of story. Simple words. Find the ones that work for you. Think about those situations where you felt like you just wanted to speak and you didn't. And review it in your head. What would happen if I said, "I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree." Learn it. It's a really great tool. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you understand that even if I don't know you today, I appreciate you. I appreciate all nurses. I know what it takes to be a good nurse, and that takes determination. It takes brilliance. It takes experience, skills, a desire to be something that most people just cherish. And I say, stay the course. Stay the course. Find yourself someone. If you're feeling really stressed out, find someone, a coach that can help you to work through some of that stuff. The coach I talked to that helped me make my decision wasn't even my nursing coach. She was a business coach, but she got to me in a way that really got me to start thinking in a little bit different way, so that I wasn't feeling so much sadness and despair about, am I going to leave? What am I going to do? How can I handle this differently? What do I need to do? And I remembered that what my purpose is for my programs that I'm teaching right now and in my coaching clients is to appreciate myself more. And that in order to appreciate myself more and to be able to teach you how to appreciate yourself more, I have to practice what I preach. So God love you. Thank you. And have a fantastic day. Please let me know if you are interested in having a coaching session. I do have free coaching sessions, and we can talk about the possibility of really moving you through some of the stuff that's going on, especially recently with nursing, because we want nurses when we retire. I want a nurse. I want to know nurses. So love you. Bye-bye.